What if I told you that the very thing you've been taught your entire life, being good, being kind, being moral, is the very thing that's holding you back and might even be the reason you're suffering? Imagine this. You're standing before two doors. One leads to a life of virtue, goodness, and self-sacrifice. The other to cunning, control, and unapologetic realism. Which do you choose? Before you answer, remember, history is written by those who win, not necessarily by those who are good. And according to Niccolo Machiavelli, being good might just be the fastest path to destruction.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This journey we're about to take isn't about encouraging you to be evil. It's about waking you up. Because goodness, when it's naive, when it's blind, when it's unguarded, becomes a weapon used against you. The world isn't a level playing field, and not everyone plays by the rules. So why should you? Why should you be the only one holding yourself back with ideas of what you should do, while others dominate, manipulate, and ascend? Machiavelli lived in a brutal time, Renaissance Italy, a place of betrayal, shifting alliances, and power constantly up for grabs. He watched good men fall. He watched evil men rise. And he asked himself one of the most uncomfortable, yet important questions. Is it better to be loved or feared? And more importantly, can a good man truly lead? His answer was chilling, because he saw over and over again that those who tried to play fair were eaten alive by those who didn't. Now think about your own life. Have you ever felt walked over because you were too nice? Have you ever watched someone less qualified, less moral, less thoughtful, rise above you while you stayed behind, still trying to play fair? If so, then deep down, you already know what Machiavelli was trying to tell us, that goodness without strength is a liability. Let's go deeper. Why do we even value goodness? Most of us are raised to believe it's the right path. To be kind, be honest, be generous. But what if those values were designed to keep you controllable? What if societies manufacture morality to domesticate the population, to make them predictable, easy to rule, easy to exploit? Because someone taught you to feel guilty for wanting power. Someone taught you to feel ashamed for putting yourself first. Why? Here's a disturbing thought. What if morality was created by the weak to protect themselves from the strong? Think about it. The lion doesn't ask for permission to hunt. The storm doesn't apologize before it rains. Nature is raw, violent, and indifferent. And yet humans, the only species capable of abstract thought, create rules that say, don't act like nature. Be good, be tame, be passive. But Machiavelli whispers from the shadows, if you want to survive, if you want to win, you must understand how the world really works, not how you wish it worked. This is where psychology and philosophy collide. Because the human mind craves safety. We want to believe that if we're good, good things will happen. It's the just world hypothesis. We need to believe that the world is fair, that justice will prevail. But the truth, the world is not fair. The world is not just. The world rewards those who understand it, not those who moralize it. Now ask yourself, have you been lied to your entire life? Have you been programmed to be passive, to serve, to obey? What if the system wants you to be good because you're easier to manage that way? Machiavelli wasn't advocating for cruelty for its own sake. He wasn't saying you should be evil. He was saying you must be strategic. He believed that a leader must learn to not be good when the situation demands it, to use goodness as a tool, not a rule. And here's the key insight. To do good, you must first survive. And to survive, you must sometimes appear good while being calculating underneath. Imagine this: you're a ruler. You want to bring peace to your people. But you're surrounded by enemies who smile to your face and plot behind your back. If you insist on always being honest, always being fair, you'll be dead before the week is over. So what do? Do you cling to your morals, or do you adapt? A person who is only good is predictable. And predictability in a world of predators is suicide. Machiavelli saw that the most successful leaders were those who could shift masks, who could be kind when it served them, and ruthless when it didn't. He admired Caesar Borgia, a man who used cruelty strategically to bring order. Not because cruelty was good, but because it was effective. Let's bring this to modern life. You're not a prince in Renaissance Italy. You might be a student, an office worker, a creator, a dreamer. But the rules haven't changed, they've just been disguised. Your competitors may smile and congratulate you, but behind the scenes, they're moving pieces you can't even see. If you insist on always being good, always being honest, always being selfless, you are playing a game that others are secretly cheating. So what's the alternative? Is it to become cold, manipulative, heartless? No, it's to become aware. Aware of the game, aware of the masks, aware of the cost of blind goodness. You can still choose kindness. You can still choose to help others. But do it from a place of strength, not weakness. From strategy, not guilt. Now here's a question that could change your whole life. What is the difference between being good and being virtuous? Being good means following rules. Being virtuous means choosing what is right, even when it's uncomfortable. And sometimes, choosing what is right means doing what appears wrong in the eyes of others. Would you be willing to be hated in order to do what must be done? Goodness becomes dangerous when it's compulsive. When you help others and destroy yourself in the process. When you speak the truth and lose your job. When you forgive and get stabbed again. That kind of goodness is martyrdom, not wisdom. And Machiavelli would say, a dead man cannot change the world. So what do? You become dangerous. Not violent, dangerous. You become someone who can fight, but chooses not to. Someone who can lie, but prefers the truth. Someone who knows how to dominate, but chooses to collaborate. That is real power. That is real virtue. And in a world of wolves, the sheep who survives is not the one who prays the hardest. It's the one who grows fangs. You might be thinking, but won't this make me a worse person? Won't this corrupt me? The truth is, you're already in a corrupted system. You're already surrounded by people who think like this but won't admit it. The only difference is whether you're conscious of it or asleep, and consciousness doesn't corrupt. It liberates. It allows you to see clearly, act strategically, and protect yourself while still doing good. Ask yourself, who do you admire most? Is it the person who always followed the rules? or the one who broke them when necessary to achieve something greater? Than the revolutionary, the leader, the survivor. They may have been hated, they may have been feared, but they changed the world, and they didn't do it by being nice. So here's the uncomfortable truth: goodness will get you destroyed if it's not paired with power, if it's not defended by strength, if it's not guided by wisdom. You must become both the lamb and the lion, both the healer and the warrior. That is what Machiavelli understood. That is what most people are too scared to admit. You have to ask yourself now, have I been too good for too long? Have I betrayed myself in the name of morality? And am I ready to see the world not as I wish it was, but as it truly is? Let's go even deeper into the fire. You've already begun to feel the tension between the comforting ethics you were raised with and the brutal mechanics of the world that Machiavelli so clearly laid bare. This is where things get uncomfortable, because now you're face to face with the truth. The world does not care about your goodness unless it benefits from it. If your kindness does not serve someone else's agenda, it's often dismissed, ignored, or even ridiculed. That's the paradox. People will cheer for your virtue until it no longer serves them. Machiavelli's brilliance lies not in celebrating cruelty, but in exposing how fragile morality becomes in the face of power. He didn't write The Prince to corrupt you, he wrote it to wake you up. Most people want to believe that the world rewards the just and punishes the wicked, yet history tells a different story. The good perish in silence, while the ruthless carve their names into stone. Why? Because they understand the rules not as moral codes, but as tools of control. You see, if you cling to goodness as a rigid identity, you become a prisoner to it. It may feel noble, but it also makes you predictable, and in a world where strategy rules, predictability is weakness. People who always do what's expected are easy to manipulate. They are chess pieces, not players. When you're afraid to disappoint, afraid to confront, afraid to offend, you put everyone else's interests above your own. And that is how the world consumes you through your own virtue. Machiavelli believed that humans are not governed by ideals, but by fear, desire, jealousy, and ambition. He saw people for what they are, not what we pretend to be. And because of that, he advised rulers to study human nature, not to moralize about it. If you want to lead, influence, or even simply survive in a world full of competing interests, you must learn how people truly operate. You must learn how to read intentions behind smiles, how to see power beneath politeness, and how to sense danger behind praise. The tragedy of the good person is that they often think everyone else is like them. They assume intentions are pure, that people mean well, that honesty will be met with honesty. But the world is full of masks, and those who don't see past them are the first to fall. Being good without being aware is not virtue, it's vulnerability. And Machiavelli would argue that innocence, in the wrong hands, becomes a weapon used against you. Imagine you're in a room with 10 people, and one of them is a predator, another is a liar, and 2 are manipulators. If you treat everyone with equal trust, who do you think gets to you first? In the predator, the liar, the manipulator. And the worst part? You'll never see it coming because you were too focused on being good and not focused enough on being smart. That's the kind of blindness that goodness creates when it's not balanced by strength. But here's where things get even more difficult to swallow. Machiavelli didn't just say you should be cunning, he said you should appear moral while being strategically immoral when necessary. Why? Because people are drawn to appearances. They want their leaders to look noble, even if they act otherwise. So if you want to rise, you must master both fronts, the image and the intent. You must learn to play the game without being consumed by it. Think about your own life. How many times have you done the right thing and still been punished for it? How often have you spoken the truth and been silenced, been generous and been taken for granted, been loyal and been betrayed? These are not accidents. These are signs. They are warnings from reality that morality without wisdom is a trap. And if you continue to ignore those signs, you will keep suffering the same fate. Now let's talk about fear, not in the sense of trembling, but in the sense of respect. Machiavelli said it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That line has been misunderstood for centuries. He wasn't saying become a tyrant, he was saying become someone with consequences. Someone who commands respect. Someone who people think twice about crossing. Respect built on fear doesn't mean people are terrified of you, it means they understand your boundaries. They know that if they betray you, there are consequences. That if they lie to you, you'll walk away. That if they take advantage, you'll retaliate not emotionally, but decisively. And this is the part most people miss. Fear, when balanced by fairness, creates loyalty. People follow strength they can trust, not kindness they can exploit. Now let's bring it into relationships. Romantic, professional, social, it doesn't matter. If you're always the one giving in, always the one compromising, always the one forgiving, you're teaching people how to treat you. You're telling them that your needs matter less. And over time, they'll believe it. Not because they're evil, but because you've trained them to. That's how goodness gets you destroyed. It makes you complicit in your own invisibility. But there's another way. A way Machiavelli whispered through every page of The Prince. Become dangerous, but disciplined. Powerful, but principled. Capable of cruelty, but choosing restraint. That is the paradox of true strength. You must be willing to go to the edge, but wise enough to know when to stop. And only those who can go there without losing themselves are truly free. Ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? Someone who is always nice but powerless? Or someone who is deeply good but untouchable? The second path is harder. It requires self-awareness, emotional control, and the courage to be disliked. But it is the only path that leads to sovereignty. Because when you stop needing approval, you start commanding respect. Let's get practical. First, stop apologizing for your boundaries. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not cruel for demanding respect. You are not arrogant for knowing your worth. People may resist at first, but over time they will adjust or disappear. Either way, you win. Second, learn to observe before you act. In every room, there are power dynamics. Who speaks the most? Who gets interrupted? Who gets listened to? These are not accidents, they are signals. And the more you notice them, the more you understand the game you're in. Third, practice silence. Most people reveal too much, too fast. They explain themselves, defend themselves, overshare, and over-apologize. But those who understand power speak less and listen more. They let others expose their intentions first. And when they speak, their words carry weight. Fourth, study your own darkness. What are you afraid to admit about yourself? What desires do you suppress? What parts of you are you ashamed of? Because until you integrate those parts, they control you from the shadows. But once you own them, you become whole and unstoppable. And fifth, use goodness as a strategy, not a compulsion. Help others, but do it from a place of choice, not guilt. Speak the truth, but know when silence serves better. Be generous, but never to the point of self-destruction. That is not coldness, that is clarity. Remember, Machiavelli didn't say abandon goodness. He said master it. Use it when it serves. Withhold it when it doesn't. And never let it blind you to the truth. Because the world is not kind to the naive, but it quietly bows to those who see clearly and act wisely. Now take a moment and ask yourself the deepest question of all. Have I been good because I chose to, or because I was afraid not to be? Now we reach the final confrontation, the deepest layer of this philosophy, where the truth is no longer intellectual, but emotional, spiritual, and personal. If you've made it this far, then something inside you is ready to confront the reality that most people run from their entire lives. You've begun to see that goodness alone is not enough. That in a world where power governs outcomes, purity without strategy is not a virtue, it's a liability. And Machiavelli, that misunderstood master of human nature, wasn't trying to turn us into monsters. He was trying to wake us up. Let's talk about the ultimate betrayal, self-betrayal. How many times have you silenced your voice to avoid conflict? How often have you sacrificed your own needs because you didn't want to be seen as selfish? How frequently have you stayed in situations that drained you, all in the name of loyalty, kindness, or morality? That's the silent suicide of the so-called good person. And the most dangerous part, you're usually praised for it. People will applaud your sacrifice while taking everything they can from you. But Machiavelli would ask, what good is your virtue if it leaves you powerless? What good is your kindness if it enables cruelty? What good is your honesty if it gets you silenced? In a world where injustice often rules, being passive in the face of it is not morality, it's surrender. And surrender, wrapped in the language of goodness, is still defeat. You must learn to stand in your full strength, not just your soft heart. Now think about how this shows up in leadership. Whether you're leading a team, a family, a community, or just your own life, you will always face resistance. There will always be people who test you, undermine you, try to manipulate you. If your only response is kindness, they will see it as weakness. If your only weapon is truth, they will use lies to outmaneuver you. And if your only tactic is fairness, they will exploit your predictability. Machiavelli's wisdom was brutal, but it was also liberating. You don't have to be good all the time. You don't have to be fair to those who are unfair to you. You don't have to be honest with those who deceive. You don't owe loyalty to people who betray you. That doesn't make you evil. It makes you conscious. It makes you sovereign. It means you are no longer playing the game by rules that only apply to you. Here's the ultimate Machiavellian insight. The world is not governed by morality, it is governed by perception, leverage, and consequence. Those who understand this rise. Those who deny it fall. The people we admire most in history did not succeed because they followed the rules. They succeeded because they understood when to bend them, when to break them, and when to use them as a weapon. They knew that goodness has its place, but so does ruthlessness. But don't confuse ruthlessness with cruelty. The Machiavellian path is not about hurting others for pleasure. It's about being willing to do what must be done, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about protecting what matters, even when it means being misunderstood. It's about choosing long-term impact over short-term approval. And that takes courage most people will never develop. Let's return to the question of appearances. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is not necessary for a leader to be good, but it is necessary to appear good. Why? Because people judge not by truth, but by surface. They don't see your intentions, they see your image. They don't examine your ethics, they react to your behavior. So if you want to influence, you must master the art of perception. You must learn to project strength, calm, confidence, even when you're uncertain. Because the world responds to image long before it responds to substance. This might sound manipulative, but think about it. Aren't you already doing this in some way? Don't you dress a certain way for interviews? Speak differently around different people? Choose your words carefully depending on the situation? That's not deceit, that's intelligence. The key is doing it with integrity, using perception not to exploit, but to protect, not to deceive, but to direct. That's the difference between a tyrant and a tactician. Now let's explore the role of fear again. If people fear you, they will think twice before crossing you. But fear must be balanced by fairness. If they know you are just, even when you are firm, they will respect you. And respect is the foundation of real power. Not love, not admiration, respect. Because respect endures even when emotions fade, and those who command it are never truly powerless. Ask yourself honestly, do people respect you, or do they just like you? There's a difference. Being liked is about comfort. Being respected is about boundaries. Being liked is easy, it requires you to agree, to please, to comply. Being respected is harder, it requires you to stand alone, to say no, to disappoint people when necessary. But in the long run, it is respect that builds influence, not charm, not niceness, respect. We've been taught to believe that power corrupts, but the truth is, power reveals. It strips away the mask and shows who you really are. If you are weak, power will amplify your fear. If you are insecure, power will expose your need for validation. But if you are clear, disciplined, grounded, power will simply become a tool, one that you can use to protect, to build, to elevate. And that is the real goal, not to dominate others, but to never be dominated by them again. So how do you cultivate this kind of power? You start by confronting your own shadows. The parts of you that are afraid of being disliked. The parts that crave safety more than truth. The parts that would rather be seen as good than be truly free. You must face them, name them, and then rise above them. Because until you do, you will always be controlled by them. Then you build boundaries, not walls, but firm lines. Lines that say, this is who I am. This is what I tolerate. This is what I will never allow again. And when people test those lines, and you enforce them, not with anger, but with clarity, not with violence, but with unwavering certainty. That is how real power is expressed. Next, you must learn to act, not to react, not to wait, but to act with intention, strategic, deliberate, unapologetic action. You cannot live your life on defense, always responding, always adjusting. You must choose your path, set your terms, and move forward regardless of who approves. Because those who wait for permission are always ruled by those who don't. Finally, you must cultivate presence. When you walk into a room, people should feel your energy before you speak. Not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. Not because you dominate, but because you radiate certainty. That kind of presence is not inherited, it is built. Through discipline, through awareness, through the daily choice to stop being ruled by fear. So what does this all mean? It means that the good person must evolve, not into a villain, but into a force. A force that is capable of love, but not blinded by it. A force that is capable of peace, but not afraid of conflict. A force that is capable of kindness, but never at the cost of self. That is the path Machiavelli was pointing toward. Not the path of cruelty, but the path of conscious, strategic power. And now I leave you with one final question. One that only you can answer. One that will define the rest of your life. Are you willing to sacrifice the illusion of goodness for the reality of strength? Because in the end, being good may get you praised, but being strong and wise will let you survive. And only the survivor gets to shape the future.